In this video, I will tell you about the 7 challenges you may face to completing the 2023 Paris-Brest Paris Randonnee, with did not finish percentages for the 2019 event ranging from 61.9% for Asia, 33.3% for Africa, and 31.1% for the Americas. We realized that there must be some significant challenges to completing the PBP. So we decided to bike pack the PBP route to gain first-hand experience of what it's like to be riding in northwestern France. These are the challenges we have identified after just completing stage 1 of the PBP, and I give you a report from the town of Montagneux-au-Perche in northwestern France. The first challenge is that it's cold. When we got up in the morning and we left our hotel to start the ride, it was already chilly. It was single figures at 8 degrees Celsius. In August, I'm sure it's going to be a lot warmer, but we wanted to experience all 7 challenges, and the first challenge is the cold. So we thought, okay, we'll start off by dressing nice and warmly with long tights and long sleeves shirts and jackets, and we thought, okay, with time it's probably going to warm up, because we saw it's going to warm up to about 16 or 17 degrees Celsius. And we thought, oh, we should be adequately dressed. And of course, we've got the experience of riding in the cold from Canada. But I must tell you that this is a different kind of cold. This is the kind of cold that gets right down into your bones. It's a damp cold. It's different to the dry cold that we've got in Canada. And this, even with all our layers, we got really cold. I think it's really important that you need to be prepared for the cold. Dress as warmly as you can. Make sure you cover your feet, wear gloves, wear long sleeves, wear arm warmers, wear warm jackets, and lots of layers so that you can actually take them off as you warm up. And hopefully when you actually do the PBP in August, I hope that it's not as cold as what we're experiencing at the moment. But yes, the cold was there with us for the entire duration of the ride. Slightly warmer on the uphills and much colder on the downhills. Now it's really important to protect yourself from the cold, because if you get sick in the early stages of the ride, it might just mess you up for the rest of the rides. Try and make sure that you stay as warm as possible. The second challenge was that there was wind. We experienced the wind shortly after getting out of Randonnee. The wind was most apparent when riding across some of the open areas, open farmlands. Although the canola fields looked absolutely beautiful, just totally enhanced the whole experience of riding through the countryside. Those open fields helped the wind, and the wind came unfortunately directly to us from the front, and we had a headwind for almost all of the way. Jermaine says that that was probably her biggest challenge today, was actually riding into the wind. I tried to ride in the front and give her some shelter for the wind. That wind was tough. Now, we found the first day tough, and imagine having at least 600 kilometers of headwind, which is what I heard they had in 2019. That's going to make it even tougher to try to complete this PBP. And I think that was probably one of the biggest contributors to people not completing the PBP. Rain is the third challenge. The rain was not as heavy as what we expected. It was light drizzles. We've got what we wanted. We've got some rain. We had lots of wind. We had some nice small steep climbs. We've had smooth and rough road surfaces. We've had lots of tiny little twisting roads through beautiful little villages. I think we've had quite a good experience, so I think we have a much better idea as to what to expect with the ride. And I think that's just the light spring rains. From what I hear, is that the rain in August of 2019 was really quite hard, and I think that made a much bigger challenge. Now, I'm certain that, all the experienced randonneers are going to be able to correct me on this, but apparently the start is actually delayed because the rain was so heavy. I think you need to come totally prepared for the rain. Make sure you wear a proper rain jacket, rain gloves, and those overshoes that are waterproof. Just prepare. Take all the precautions you possibly can to make sure that you can actually withstand the rain. So the fourth challenge that I'm going to tell you about is the elevation. Now, when you start off from Randonnee, it looks really subtle. The hills are very gentle. they're rolling, and it looks like you could actually just ride up and down them really quite easily for most of the way. And that's what I thought it's going to be like. I really thought that this ride is going to be just lots of rolling hills where you put a bit of effort into the hill and you roll down, and that takes you halfway up the next hill. But no, when we got to Longus Perche and when we came to Montage Perche, those hills suddenly became 10% inclines. That was a lot more than what I expected. So don't be fooled. The elevation gain is huge. And so when I looked at the initial map, if you go to the PVP website and you actually take the routes and look at the different routes and you look at the elevation gain on them, and you'll see that there's almost 1,000 meters per stage that you have to climb. The shorter stages, like I think one of the stages is only 54 kilometers, and the elevation gain is about 450 meters. That elevation gain is true. It's going to be a real challenge. Make sure that you include lots of hill training into your program. Don't just go for the distance. Make sure that you actually include some hill climbing, because those hills are really tough and you need to know exactly how to tackle them. You've got to make sure that your weight is as low as possible. You've got to make sure that you've had enough climbing experience. It's really hard. To top it off, this was just day one. Day one translates into day 15. So I can imagine on our way back from Brest to Randonnee that all the downhills that we experience are going to be reversed into uphills. And imagine trying to ride those uphills at the end of the ride, 10% in your last 100 kilometers. Wow, that is going to be hard. I've looked at the rest of the map and it doesn't look like it gets any easier. It looks as though that 10% inclines are going to be there for most of the stages from here. So make sure you know how to ride those hills. It's going to be a tough one. The inclines and the elevation gain are going to be a significant challenge. The fifth challenge is that there are some tricky sections on the road. Now, I know that this is not supposed to be a technical ride, and I'm certain that the technical parts are going to be minimized, but there are still some really narrow roads and some really sharp corners that you need to be aware of. So you need to take absolute care that you don't have an accident on one of those tiny little roads. Bear in mind that some of those roads will have to be negotiated at night, when the possibility of having an accident is going to be so much higher, and you're going to have to take absolute care. So if it's rainy, it's windy, it's wet, it's slippery, it's dark, and you're going down those windy roads, take absolute care, because you don't want to spill. If you have a spill and you have an injury, getting to the end of this ride is going to be extremely difficult. So you got to take care. Make sure you've got adequate lighting. Make sure that if you are riding in a pack, that there's enough space between you and the rider in front of you, so that if he comes down, that you have some way of trying to get past him. And factor into the whole equation the fatigue component. If you're tired, it's cold, it's rainy, it's slippery, it's wet, it's dark, poor visibility, other tired riders around you, yeah, the chances of having a crash on some of these roads is going to be significantly increased. So make sure you take all the precautions. Make sure you rest properly. Make sure that you're well hydrated, you're rested, you are well fed, have adequate lighting, you've got good visibility. And also at the same time, try to just be aware of your surroundings at all times to try to minimize the risk of a crash. Yeah, but those roads are not going to be easy. Some of the roads have got cobbles, and so these are the kind of cobbles. Now, the cobbles look innocent, but I tell you, you take a bicycle and you ride on those cobbles and they become something else. They become like... What it looks like is that in the 2019 edition, the riders were backed on this specific stretch of road, and this looks like it extends all the way back to the Bergerie. So they must have stacked the riders along this route, and then the riders would come along here, exit from here, and then ride across and probably go on the main road and start the climb on that side. But you know, I think the important part is that when you come out of here, you can see that there's still lots of cobbles, and this can make for some rough surfaces. And I think just be really careful, especially if it's raining. Just be really careful if it's raining, that you don't have any falls or accidents, especially as you come out If you come out with quite a bit of speed, you might just slip on these cobbles as you're trying to take the corner. So just go carefully with that, you know, and it gives me total respect for those riders that are doing the spring classics, and we see how they ride over those cobbles and crash on those cobbles. Yeah, that's a real thing. So just take absolute care. The sixth challenge is going to be the jet lag. Make sure that you have enough time to come to France and acclimatize and get rid of that jet lag. Now, I don't know exactly how jet lag works, but I suspect that it's a combination of, first of all, the time zone changes, and I suspect that most international riders are going to have to make quite a few time zone changes. So if you are going to be traveling either from the east or from the west, you're going to have to cross quite a few time zones to get to France. And getting your body clock to reset to the local time is not going to be easy. Make sure that you give yourself enough time to rest so that you can get accustomed to the local time zones. So Paris is a good option to be able to try to get into the local time zones, because there's lots of tourist attractions. You can do lots of things in Paris. You can go sightseeing, you can just stroll, you can do lots of things that are absolutely for free. You can go to Montmartre, you can go to Eiffel Tower, you can walk around some of the museums. There's lots of free things to do there, but the idea with that is that it gives you something to keep you distracted so that you can stay awake during the day and actually get to sleep at night, and in that way try to reset to the local time zone. But also I think some of the jet lag comes about from the physical stress of actually flying. And when you fly for many hours, the body tightens up, cramps, you know, unless you're flying in business class or first class, you know, it's going to be a real toughie. So jet lag is a huge factor, and it takes a long time to recover from jet lag. I think you need to give yourself at least 4 to 7 days to actually overcome that jet lag. So this is day 5, and it's only by today that I feel that I've actually overcome most of the jet lag. So I think any shorter than that, you know, is going to really compromise your opportunity to be able to finish this Paris-Brest Paris. Come early, see the sights, have lots of rest, lots of drink, do some stretching, get familiar with the place, and in that way overcome that jet lag and give yourself the best opportunity to actually get to the end of this ride. Oh, and the 7th challenge to actually finishing this PBP is the unknown. I think just by not being familiar with the route can play havoc on your mind. And I'll give you an example. So yesterday, Jermaine had a Wahoo, I had a Wahoo, and we were both tracking our distance. Unfortunately, her Wahoo actually lost power, and she was not able to know exactly where she was and how far she was from the end of stage 1. And immediately you could see, as soon as she didn't have that kind of guidance to know how far the end is, she immediately started to get tired. So I think there's a large psychological factor that's involved in actually getting to the end of the ride. If you know where you're going, it's so much easier than riding into the unknown. When you ride into the unknown and it seems like an open-ended, never-ending kind of challenge, it just gets so much more difficult. So how do you overcome that? I think what you need to do is you need to, first of all, study the route as best you can. Try to know exactly where you're going, try to be familiar with as many landmarks. And I know it's not easy. I looked at as many different pictures of the different towns to try to get landmarks and see exactly where it is, but it was just very difficult to actually do that. It's actually just hard to comprehend where you're going to be and visualize where you're going to be on this ride. It's going to be tough. That's one of the things we decided to do with this specific bikepacking trip. We want to bikepack at least the first 7 stages of the ride so that we mentally are prepared and visually we have some kind of visual familiarity with the route itself. So that if we do this for a second time, we say, okay, we know we've seen this before, we know where we are, we have an idea as to where Montage or Pesh is, and we have an idea as to where the next town is going to be. By having that kind of familiarity, it does give us an idea as to how we need to pace ourselves so that we can get to the end of this ride. Now, if you haven't done it before, it's going to be really difficult. One way is, try to watch not just this video, but try to watch as many other videos of people that have done the ride, so that you can get familiar with the route itself and get a sense of exactly how far this ride is. 1,200 kilometers is a long way to ride if you have no idea where you're going to. I really would be interested to know, especially from you very experienced randonneers and those that have access to some of the statistics, how many first-time riders actually finished the PVP? That's what I would love to know. And how many second-time riders finish the PVP? I suspect that first-time riders will have a lower finishing rate than those that are experienced at riding the PVP. I suspect that those riders that have done it before have some kind of mental preparation for the race. They know how to prepare, they know how far to go, they know how to pace themselves, whereas first-time riders have got no clue as to where they're going to. They don't know how to pace themselves, they don't know how much more effort they need to put in. And I suspect that that's what the statistics are going to show. Experience with the PVP leads to success in the PVP. That's what I suspect. But of course, I'm probably going to be completely wrong about this. For all of those that are going to be riding the PVP in 2023, I want to wish all of you guys all the very best. And to all of you that have already completed and been successful at completing the PVP in the past, complete hats off to you. Congratulations. You guys are amazing. My respect grows with every pedal stroke on this specific ride. It's just a total amazing achievement. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to press that like button. And if you want to see more videos about either just cycling around the world or Randonnee, please subscribe to this channel. Until the next time I see you, cheers.